As we welcome in our 1320 Kings Insider and our good friend James Ham. Hammer, what's happening, man?
I'm good. Wait, did I hear this correctly? Kenny got a phone?
Kenny got a new phone.
Get the new phone. Like I got 3 cameras back here. I'm doing big things now, James. Come on.
Did you go to the AT&T store or did you go somewhere else?
I tried and I ended up going to Apple. I got it all taken care of at Apple. So and yeah, man, I'm up to date now. I'll see.
You can't figure out how to work it.
I'll see them again in 4 years.
Now it's great, James. He won't respond to our text on his new phone instead of on his old one.
Oh, that's spectacular.
Well, the crazy thing about it is, like, there's a couple of new features, but it's the same damn phone. It just moves faster. Like, I got the little thing at the top.
No, it's not. No, you can talk on it now. You couldn't talk on your old phone. You literally couldn't have a conversation on your old phone.
Not without speakerphone.
No, not without speakerphone.
Not without looking like a elderly woman walking through the grocery store talking.
Oh my God,
it's tough, man.
That's a wild practice that is becoming way too popular.
I don't understand that at all. Like,
I'm in the produce. I'm trying to get some blueberries, and this woman is like, "Yeah, girl, we about to do it." And I look over, and she got the old phone in the universal speakerphone position, like this. Like, yo, lady, you can't be serious. What are you doing?
You might not be able to hear.
It's becoming way too common.
You might not be able to hear on the regular phone. I had to put it on speaker.
I love it when you see them driving in their car doing that. It's like, man, it's supposed to be hands-free. Like, your hand is still filled with phone. Like, what is going on?
Oh, that's tremendous.
The off season. What's going on?
Right. Well, we were talking about Rick Adelman.
Oh, yeah.
And the achievement award that he got from the Coaches Association over the weekend. You didn't get to cover Rick Adelman, but I'm sure you have some experiences with him.
Yeah, I've met him once. It was severely derailed by Nancy Lieberman catching me before I could get to Rick Adelman's press conference. And like, once you start talking to Nancy, you can't go anywhere else. Yeah, it's real life. So yeah, I've met him once or twice, I think. And just a really good man. And, like everyone around Sacramento has nothing but good thoughts to say about him. He struggled with some health issues over the last couple of years. And before that, his wife, Mary Kay, I believe, also struggled with some health issues. So they've been through the ringer a little bit. But it was good to see him get recognized. It's good to see him at the Hall of Fame last year. It's good to see him go in with some former Kings. And it's just really, I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he's being able to get this type of recognition because he really didn't get it as a head coach when he was in the league. He was always one of the good guys, but not always considered the best. And I think he's one of the best game managers I've ever seen. And his next man up mentality was the best that I think we've ever seen. We're talking about a guy who just had everyone ready to play each and every night.
What would you say? And I know you didn't necessarily cover the Rick Adelman era, but being close to it, talking to him, talking to people around, what do you think his coaching style was? Was it one of, not discipline, but, he's got a set structure of rules and you got to follow them? Or was he so beloved because while there was structure in place, he still gave room for the players to kind of venture out and do some of their things, and then when they needed to, he'd rein them back in? But what would you say his coaching structure was?
I think if you look at like his history, not just in Sacramento, but the teams he had in Portland, his brief stop in Golden State, but all of his time in Sacramento, all of his time after he left Sacramento, with the Houston Rockets and the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think the things that stand out are, number one, the Kings have made the playoffs a total, counting this year, 11 times in the history of the franchise. 8 of those came under Rick Adelman. They've had a 500 record 9 times now. 8 of those were under Rick Adelman. This is a guy that just really, he listened to the people around him. He allowed someone like Pete Carrill in the door and to come up with an offensive scheme that would fit his players. And I really do believe that he optimized players about as well as you can possibly imagine. Guys like Scott Pollard, who, I mean, he was a first round pick that was waived, like in either his rookie season or his second season, he was waived, and the Kings picked him up and utilized him perfectly. A guy like Chris Webber that had bounced around, you'd name it. Rick Adelman had his finger on the pulse of his team as well as anybody. And I always, even if you look at the 8-year run, that's amazing. But the one that always stands out to me was the Houston Rockets won 21 games in a row. And at game 11, they lost Tracy McGrady, and game 12 or 13, they lost Yao Ming, and they just kept winning. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter that they lost those guys. It didn't matter that, you were replacing Yao Ming with anyone. It doesn't matter. They just kept rolling. And that's something that always stood out. When Mike Bibby got hurt, they had a replacement. When, Peja Stojakovic got hurt, Hito would slide into starting lineup. It was just always the next man up, always everyone pulling together, everyone one big happy family. And even if those are some really, really distinct, strange personalities that you have in one building, he had a way of getting everyone to be on the same page. So yeah, just an absolutely tremendous coach. And I really do hope the Sacramento Kings raise his name to the banners, raise a banner to the rafters with his name on it.
Hammer, speaking of coaches, speaking of former Kings coaches, you've got something cooking up for off the record happy hour tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So Gary St. Jean is going to join us at 5:30 for the happy hour. It's usually on Thursday nights. We're doing it on Tuesday night this week just for scheduling issues. But Gary St. Jean, if you've ever been able to be around him, he's just a ball of energy and just one of the best human beings you're ever going to run into. So I'm really excited to have him on. We'll talk a lot of old King stuff. We'll talk some current stuff. His son is a big assistant on the Dallas Mavericks roster. So like all kinds of things that we can cover, but I think it's just going to be really cool to go back in time and listen to a bunch of cool stories from Saint, because again, he's just got so much energy, and I can't wait for that. It's going to be really fun on the happy hour.
The Dallas Mavericks aren't in the news at all today.
No, not at all.
No.
Who?
No.
Who? I remember he came to, I used to go to Kevin Johnson's camp at Sac High, and Gary St. Jean came and talked to us. This was before the 94-95 season. So I was like 10, and it was the coolest thing. Nicest man. Answered all our little silly questions and was just very, very nice. I remember that's when they had the logo change and the color scheme change. Mm-hmm. And I was just asking, I was like, dude, are they going to change the court and everything? And he goes, yeah, they're going to change the court. And he goes around and he answers 3 or 4 other questions. And then I put my hand back up. I was like, even the seats, are they changing everything about? Yes, they're changing everything about. Now they didn't even change the seats, but
Kenny was a masterful interviewer even back then.
There it is. Yeah.
Down to
Did you say, Saint, can you tell me about the seat change?
Which they didn't change. It was blue and red the whole time. That would have been a little excessive. They didn't need to change.
Yeah, it would have been a little expensive to change 17,000 seats because you changed the color of the court. But.
Yeah, I think it's cool too because St. Jean is the coach that led them to the 95-96 playoffs. He's the one that broke the first 10-year drought, and so it'll be cool to get his perspective on that. And he's been down in the Bay Area doing Warrior stuff for years. And I think that's interesting too. We'll talk about sort of the dynasty probably coming to an end and what that means and sort of, how it pertains to the Sacramento Kings. I think there's all kinds of stuff we can talk about. And I'm excited because very few people have this type of energy. They don't, not everyone can bring it like Gary St. Jean. He just is a bundle of energy.
Kings have multiple double-digit playoff droughts.
Damn. I've only been here 35
That's
years.
a cold
38
world, man.
38 years.
That is
almost
a cold.
40. Wow.
Well, thankfully the droughts are over.
They are over.
Thanks.
That's right.
We about to turn up.
I think we've already started to turn up. James, I'll ask you a question that Sarah and Jake asked us last night on Sports Sunday. If you what position, like if you play take the players out and they just said, Hammer, the Kings are going to add to this position group this offseason, which one would it be?
Well, it's clearly the forwards. Like, I don't know if it's going to be a power forward or a small forward. It just really does depend on what the Kings believe Keegan Murray can be long term. So if Harrison Barnes is back, that's one thing. I think we already know that there's a good chance Sasha Vezenkov will be in Sacramento, but they still need to add. You're still missing pieces there. So I would say if there's one thing you need to add, I mean, I'll keep saying this: it's length, it's athleticism, it's defensive acumen that you need to add. And whatever that position, you got to add it. But for my money, like, this team needs a 6'8" small forward or power forward with a 7'1" wingspan that can play defense, that can block shots, that can rebound, that can score, that can shoot the ball. That's what they really need. And I'm hoping that that's what they're able to attack. But, you know, it takes two to tango. And sometimes in these situations, it takes three to tango, because one of the biggest assets the Kings might have is Harrison Barnes' expiring contract, and the ability to do a sign and trade might help them yield the player that they need. And that's going to take Harrison Barnes and then another team. And so it can get complex about how it is that you add that piece that you need.
And why would Harrison Barnes do a sign and trade just as a solid to the Kings? Because it's not as if he's gonna, I don't believe at least, he's gonna command this contract that he can only get from the Kings, that it's a bunch of money. And, you know, to make sure he gets all his money, signs with the Kings. And even though they want to move on from him, he gets that contract and then he moves on that way. Like, it seems like it'd be a relatively easy contract for somebody with moderate cap space to be able to sign him to. What would be the reasons why Harrison would partake in that?
Yeah, well, the biggest issue is that the Kings, like everyone else in the league, there's very few teams with cap space, right? So there's a mid-level exception that's going to be around, I think it's $12.2 million. If Harrison Barnes will sign for the mid-level, then, you know, the Kings have competition with, you know, like 20 plus teams. Anyone who's under the luxury tax has the opportunity to go out and sign Harrison Barnes. Any team above the luxury tax isn't going to be able to do that. Their mid-level has gone away, basically. So that's going to be one thing. If it's a 3-year, $37 million contract or $38 million contract that Harrison Barnes is seeking, then he can get it from probably 15 or 20 teams around the league. And of those, I don't know how many are like circling Harrison Barnes as the right fit for them. But anything above that, there's just really not a lot of cap space. And I don't think we're going to see a team go outside of, you know, like just go crazy to sign Harrison Barnes, like come up with 18 to 20 million bucks in cap space. But that doesn't mean that Harrison won't play in more like the 15, 16, $17 million range. Mm-hmm. And so it's possible that a team will go to the Kings and say, hey, like, we really like Harrison Barnes and we're interested and we would like to go, this is what he's looking for contractually. And we can't get to that. So is there any way that you'll sign and trade him to us and we'll give you this player or this player? And so I think that that's where you could see Harrison Barnes, like if his salary range goes above the $12 million range, which like historically it's been a lot higher than that. I mean, he's coming off a year where he made 18.4, 18.6 million bucks. I could easily see a team coming after him with a 3-year $50 million or a 3-year $48 million deal. And there's just not a lot of teams that can actually do that deal without involving the Kings and having them facilitate part of the transaction.
Hammer, is there a realistic scenario where Chris and Keegan Murray are the starting 3 and 4 next year?
Man, that's a tough one. Like, there's a possibility that Chris is on the roster, but I don't know that he's ready to be a starting 3 or a 4. That Chris, like, Keegan is one thing. Keegan was a number 4 pick in the draft. We're talking about Chris at anywhere between like 16 and 25. And so that's just a different level of player. While they're identical, they aren't identical as far as the way they play. Very, very different as far as the way they play. Chris is a true left-hander. He shoots left-handed, where Keegan, they're both left-handed, but Keegan shoots with his right. So it's a little bit different. They're both like interesting players, but I think they are, like, to their core, they're still too similar. So while their games aren't the same, their bodies are. And as far as athleticism and like, you guys love it when I say swivel in the hips, all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, like, we're talking about like their wingspan, their height, their weight, again, their max vert, they're almost identical. So, like, I don't know that you want to have two of the same exact players on the court. I don't think that the Kings would shy away from it. If he's sitting there at 24 and they think he's the best player, like, why not? They know he's a good kid. They know that, he's not going to have problems. They know that it would provide like a support person for Keegan. But at the same time, Keegan has never really said, yeah, I want my brother on my team. And he's actually been kind of the opposite. Like, he's ready to carve out his own niche as Keegan Murray, not as part of the Murray twins. And so, like, there could come a point where, they cross paths again in the league, but I'm not sure that it's going to be this year one. It is possible, but I also say, like, Sasha Vezenkov, if you're looking at him as one of the three forwards and you were to draft Chris Murray, I still think Sasha's further along as far as a player, and he would probably get a nod before a rookie coming in.
Ham said Chris Murray, like 15 to 24, 25, 26, whatever. I feel like that's every player we're talking about with the Kings. Trista asked me over the weekend, hey, what do you think about Jordan Hawkins? Kid from UConn. I was like, well, I don't. Isn't he going like 12th or 13th or something like that? She was like, yeah, but I saw him as low as 25th. I'm like, wait, what? And like, as we've looked, this was from our exercise last week where we were looking at how many people had Chris Murray at 24 and then looking how similar the players were from 20 to like 28. And you could really string it out and get to 16, 17, 18 to 27, 28, 29. And you see the same players in completely 15, 27, which I don't get.
Well, look, and this is because, you have the people, Kings get to the playoffs and, we're all excited. We get hyped. They'll be like, oh, yeah, you guys don't know, but you ain't never been here. You never been here, all this other stuff. I scoff at that, but I go to hell or whatever the case may be. But James, I don't think we've ever been here. Like, usually for our mock drafts, for our interest, pretty cut and dry. You got about 5-6 guys that you're looking at, and it's pretty cut and dry. That top 7 of the lottery is where we usually are. Is this pretty common practice to have so many mock drafts this late in the first round be kind of all over the place?
I think it's a little strange. I told you guys last week, I think from like 15 to 40 that this is pretty wide open, and very specifically from 25 to 40 or 20 to 40, it's wide open. There's so many different players that could go, and you just have no idea. Like, someone brings up Bilal Koulibaly, right? And he's got all kinds of potential. He's a French prospect that plays with Victor Wembanyama. And I, he's got a ton of potential, but all of a sudden we started hearing late last week that he's already had a top 14 guarantee. So anytime you get a guy with a top 14 guarantee, that means that someone that was in the top 14 is falling to you, or that guy's really not going to go in the top 14. And we're just hearing that. So yeah, I really think it's an interesting draft because it's pretty deep and it's got a lot of talent, but once we get to a certain point, all of the talent kind of, mixes together and you're really not sure. And like, I know today Imani Bates came through Sacramento for a workout. So I know, Kenny, you'll be excited about that.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's see what the young fella got, man. Let's talk to him, man. Does Monty need me to go talk to him? Do I need to interview him too?
No one needs that.
Do I need to interview him? I can call Monty now because I can hear him now.
We don't need you to go ask Monty if the seats are going to change when they change the court.
Yeah. Our friend Matt George had that first. He put it out there, and I was able to confirm that a little while ago. And Imani Bates is a really good sort of jumping off point for a conversation about how this draft is so wide open. Like, he could go 24 to the Kings. He also could be there at 54 when the Kings draft. And that's partially because of his off the court stuff. It's partially because he didn't produce that well. Then he's bounced around. Then, you know, things have gone a little sideways for him. But it's also because there are players in this draft that you might think that are more of a sure bet than he is, and that you don't want to risk, you know, a decent draft pick on a player that you think you could get later in the draft, or you think could go undrafted, or could go in the first round. And that's sort of the interesting part about Emoni Bates. And I have no idea where he's going to go, but I'm certainly, you know, he's a guy that like did not test extremely well at the combine. We talked about this last week. I mean, his like standing vert was like 27 inches. Max vert was like a little over 30. Just not like one of the big time leapers or super athletes of this draft. But there are a lot of guys in his range that do some of what you want to do. So like, if you're looking for 3-and-D guys, he's not really your guy. If you're looking at him, you're looking at a guy that has potential to be really, really, really good, or that could be out of the league really quickly. And as opposed to, you know, there are safer bets that you think that even if they aren't great, you can still work with them and have them be like a back of the rotation or back of the bench, you know, 3-and-D type player.
I hope he takes a swing on one of these picks. I don't really want 3. I don't want to call them safe, because like these guys can be in the league and produce or whatever. But you got 3 picks in this draft, man. You're already picking late in the first round.
Has Monty taken a swing at all?
I don't think so.
Jemias Ramsey.
At least the type of swing.
Ramsey was a swing. That was a swing for Francis.
And what'd that turn into?
That wasn't even a foul tip. That one hit the catcher's glove. That's what that did.
Take another swing. He should have took the swing last year with Jaden Hardy. We probably wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah.
So,
well, he did. To his credit, he drafted him.
So
yeah.
If he takes 2 quote unquote safe picks, and then one guy like an Emoni Bates, it doesn't have to be. It could be wherever. I don't care where it is. But I want one guy where it's like, hey, his ceiling is crazy if he figures it all out. I want one of those guys like that.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you too, like normally every other year I've watched him, Monty, move off of his second round picks pretty quickly. We saw it again with the Jaden Hardy pick. We saw it with the 49th pick they traded for Sasha Vezenkov. We've seen him move his second round picks pretty consistently. Even the year before, I can't remember who it was drafted, but another player that actually made it. And when we talk about Woodard and Ramsey, they traded, you know, one of those was Xavier Tillman that they traded down. They swapped out and drafted Woodard afterwards. So he's been very active, but I bring this up because this is the first year where there's going to be 3 two-way contracts. And so for me, second round picks all of a sudden took a big jump as far as value, a tremendous jump as far as value, because you're looking at probably Keon Ellis getting a two-way, but I'm going to just my guess is that Neemias Queta will be on the standard roster this next season. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that like he's done enough to earn his way up. And so if you have Keon Ellis on a two-way, that means you have 2 more two-ways to sign. And you might be able to get a guy like an undrafted free agent. You might be able to get a guy like in the regular standard G League pool that has talent and you want to sign up for a two-way. But you could also use, you know, at least the 38 pick and come away thinking that you probably got a player that you can develop with a two-way, and then you just keep their rights. And so I think it's cool because that means that the standard roster is going up to 18 players this year, which is all new. And you'll have the ability to move those players back and forth. And so I wouldn't doubt that the Kings look at a center like Jackson Davis. I wouldn't doubt that they look at a big point guard that can play defense and, you know, has some length. So I think that there's some options here that they could chase. So they're developing, and maybe you don't need to keep a third point guard on your roster this year because you've got one stashed in as a two-way player where you haven't in the past.
We'll come back. We'll talk more with our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, about Sacramento Kings basketball, not just the upcoming NBA draft, but free agency to begin shortly after that. That's all coming up. As D'Lo and Casey, brought to you by Sky River Casino, returns here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Alex, I like Leonard Miller from the Ignite too, but there's also some other guys that I like. Omax. I don't know. There's a group of players that are around the same skill level that I think would make sense for the Kings. Jalen Wilson from Kansas. He put up some pretty big numbers.
That's my boy, Jalen Wilson.
Yeah, you see Trace Jackson Davis is starting to climb up in some of the draft boards. That's a guy that just straight up the Kings, I think, will look at, because we're talking about a dude who averaged 20 and 10, 2.9 blocks per game, and he's mature. He's 23, and he's 6'9", 240, just a big body. And
he was here, right?
What's that?
Was he? He was here, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's already come through. Yeah, he did. He worked out in Indiana the other day and looked really good in his workout in Indiana. He's a player that I think can go all the way at 24. But again, someone that you know what you're getting, right? So there's not a lot of questions about who and what he is. You hope that there's a way he can develop a three-point shot, but you don't know. But you do know he can score, he can rebound, he can block shots. He averaged right around 4 assists a game, and he's mature. So Olivier Maxence Prosper, that's my other guy that I like a lot. He's a kid out of Marquette who has super crazy athleticism, but not a great shooter yet.
So you said 3. Well, I guess I should save this for the radio, so I will. 3, 2 contracts.
So I got a question. David Stern.
How about we
came out?
That button.
David Stern, excuse me. Oh, my bad. Adam Silver came out whenever. I don't know when he said this. Was it No, it was before game 1 of the game 2 of the finals, and he talked about expansion and everything like that. And he said, he wants to wait for the media rights deal to go through. And he says they'll start negotiating on that next spring. I mean, they're negotiating that right now, right? They're having talks. I mean, this is a $1 billion corporation. I mean, they should have a whole department dedicated to doing the research and having talking to some of these executives, talking to ESPN and these guys.
I mean, you're probably having discussions because your current company has they almost certainly have the first right of refusal, but you're having those discussions knowing that once that first right of refusal window closes, you're going to take the meeting with Apple TV. You can't take the meeting with Apple TV before then, or YouTube or whatever. So are there discussions? Sure. Are there negotiations? No, almost certainly not. That would be insane.
On whose part?
On the league's part, on anybody's part, because they can't talk to anyone but ESPN or TNT right now. You want to talk to Apple, you want to talk to YouTube, you want to talk to NBC. You want to talk to all of those other entities.
Why can't they? Is it against the law, against the rule? Because I think about
why can't they talk to them now?
Yeah, because I think about
because ESPN and TNT, their current broadcasters would have the first right of refusal and the first negotiating window. The negotiating window probably it might be open, but at some point it's going to open. The exclusive window is going to close. So,
and what I think about when I hear first right of refusal is, if Apple was we're giving you $5 billion right now, the NBA has to go to TNT and ESPN and say this is what it is. But in my mind, Apple can do that tomorrow. I'm okay, well that's what you're bargaining. We're going to send this back to TNT ESPN.
But the NBA can't negotiate with Apple right now.
Yeah, Apple can like speak it out loud and say we would give $5 billion for the rights or whatever, but the NBA can't reciprocate the conversation because they're in a contractual situation.
And then if they said that out loud, then TNT and ESPN would probably have a legal case.
Yeah.
Hang on, James.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question or no?
It answered the question, but I'm still looking at it like, so I asked the question about like Adam Silver talking about we're not going to do any. He talked about expansion. He's like, we're not doing anything with expansion until I believe he said we start negotiations next spring. Like I don't even know when the deal is up. I don't even know if it's up in 24.
It's probably the following year.
Yeah, it's probably up in 25. So he said we'll start negotiations then, and it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I was wondering why they can't start that process now, and you guys explained it, and it makes sense. But I think about like when the league has the uniform deal with Reebok, and the deal's with Reebok, and a year and a half before the deal's over, they announced in 2 years we're going to be with Nike. Like, didn't they negotiate that during their deal with Reebok?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a window that had opened where they had this right of first refusal and they couldn't come to an agreement. And so it opened up to other partners,
so
other potential partners.
That right of first refusal probably starts in spring of 2024.
Yeah, probably. It's probably a 90-day window between the NBA, ESPN, and TNT, or, whatever the main entities are. And then
I swear we've been talking about this TV deal for 2 years. And
we probably have
2 years away.
Yeah, probably have. Yeah,
because they know how big it's going to be. They have a really good idea of how big it's going to be. And all of us are going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. Like the last one was $9 billion, right?
Jeez.
Yeah. And, now that, the direct to consumer thing is becoming bigger. Like ESPN, as we know it, could look very, very different in 2 years. It could be distributed differently. Like what you pay for now on your ESPN Plus, which I think has gone from $4 to what, like 14? Like that could be 20 because now they're going to include the actual ESPN channel without a login. Like it's directly to you now. It's the evolution. Like it's the evolution of the way TV is consumed. It's the evolution. TV is the wrong word. TV is a box. It's the evolution in which this content is consumed.
Yeah.
And like it was a handful of years ago, Twitter aired live football games. They aired the London game.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And now you've got these Amazon Prime deals. You can't watch, anything on YouTube TV without seeing a commercial for Sunday Ticket.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah.
And now you've got the regional networks, falling apart, not able to keep up. And and Adam, I think, talked about this. I don't remember if it was before the finals or one of the last State of the Union speeches that he gave, but that stuff is likely to change here in the coming years too.
Yeah. I think, everything you guys said was spot on. The expansion probably going to be, in my opinion, it's probably going to be Seattle and Vegas. Then you move New Orleans and Memphis to the east. Do it that way. Like I know Nashville is intriguing, but I don't think there's really a need for Nashville if you got Memphis. They might have a spot or two. Kansas City's always talked about, but I think the move is Vegas and Seattle in realignment with New Orleans and Memphis.
I haven't been tracking it today. What is the Major League Baseball situation with the A's?
I didn't get to read the article. It said 50-50. Yeah. Like this thing is on very ginger.
And they have, I'm just assuming, I don't know. They have like till 5 o'clock. They probably got all night to do, like, because they'll in some of these things, they stay as long as they need to come to some type of resolution, right?
There could be like I don't remember if it said like a judicial hearing or like some sort of election or something like that where the stuff is put out to the public. I'm praying for this thing to fall apart because I think it would be so funny. I genuinely do. Like, this dude is a slime ball, and for this whole thing to blow up in your face to the point where, like, how do you come back? Don't you just have to sell the team after that? Like, how do you come back from it? You can't go back to Oakland.
No.
Like, so what do you do?
Well, Oakland is sitting there with open arms, waiting to negotiate if they do. But again, the project that they wanted to do before, they don't have the money to do anymore. So we talked about this last week. Like, John Fisher, he's a primary shareholder in Gap, and their stock has gone from like $35 in January of 2011 to $8.50. Like, the liquidity, he doesn't have cash on hand to do some of the stuff that he intended to do before. And it's time for him to get out. It's been time for him to get out. He's embarrassed Major League Baseball. He's embarrassed the city of Oakland, and that the product that they put on the field is one of the worst things that anyone has ever seen. It's just absolutely pathetic what they've done to a really proud franchise that just a couple of years ago was in the running, was a quality playoff team, and they just dumped all over it. So I would like to, again, I'll keep saying this, that if Vivek wants to get involved and bring the team to Sacramento, I don't consider that so much relocation as it is finding a right spot right down the street. That isn't that big of a deal. You're not going to lose all of your fans in Oakland if it's in Sacramento. I don't know if he can make that happen, and it would take an absolute ton to retrofit Rivercat Stadium. But you could at least have them there until you had a big time ballpark built in the rail yards. And, it's big enough to house a major league team temporarily. You're not going to make the same money, but, they could retrofit a little bit, put some bleachers in the outfield, and maybe reconfigure the outfield wall and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that there are options, especially with Vivek now owning the Rivercats.
Vivek, he wants in on something else.
Mm-hmm. He definitely
wants in on something else.
He does. Oh yeah.
With his portfolio, whether it's soccer, hockey, baseball, whatever, he's not done. And I don't think this Nevada thing is going to happen right now. Maybe they just reconvene and try and do it later in the year or something like that. But the one today, I don't think that's going to work out. Mm-hmm. So that may be the opening that somebody like Vivek needs to, kind of jump in and see what kind of magic he can make.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's everything's up for grabs. And you bring up Vivek, like, he's super intrigued with other sports franchises. We've seen him chase NHL. We've seen him chase like soccer in Europe, major European soccer teams. Mm-hmm. And so he's out there, like, he's ready to jump on something, and for good reason. Like, what was the valuation of the Kings? Like $535 million when he bought them. And now I bet you they're going to be worth $3 billion this summer when Forbes releases their redone, financials. And I mean, that's a lot of money to make in 10 years. Like, even if he didn't put in all of the money, whatever money he did make, what's he made, like 6 times the return, 5 times the return? That's crazy. And so I think he's looking into these things as moneymakers, and that's okay. And as long as he has the same mentality that he did when he bought the team in Sacramento, that he was going to support the community, that he was going to be part of what's happening here, and like not be an absentee owner, and continue to build out the stuff that he said he was going to build, which I think he's done a good job of doing.
He's done it all.
Before we get back to the Kings, what'd you think about last night? What'd you think about Miami evening this thing out with Denver?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Kenny if he's still like snoozing on this.
No, yes, it was a great game. But y'all thought game 1 was good. Game 1 was trash. Game 2 was a great game. Game 2 was a great game.
I think this is the best thing for the league. We're pulling the veil back on years and years of just focusing on stars, and we're looking at 2 really, really good teams. And it's just a lot of fun to watch with different guys stepping up. Gabe Vincent, again, Caleb Martin can't hit a shot, then hits a huge 3 at the right moment. Strus hit shots like just one big time shot after. I thought it was phenomenal. I had a great time watching it. I watched it back again this morning, and Jokic is just so incredible to watch. The comeback from Denver in the first half, like it was a heavyweight battle, and I don't care where they're from. I just thought it was like spectacular basketball, high level basketball, and now we got a series. Like, game on.
Yeah, no, I will say this. I will defend this because I, James, you're much like myself. Damien, you're the same way. I mean, we just love basketball, so it doesn't really matter where they're from or who they're playing from. But I mean, we didn't say the finals with OKC was boring because there was a lot of juice in that. There was a lot of intrigue. There wasn't a lot of intrigue coming into this series, like storylines and and story arcs or nothing like that. And I thought in that game 1, it was just really blah. Like, it was just like kind of whatever. I thought everything about game 2 was a lot more intriguing as far as the sense of urgency from Miami. I don't know what the hell happened, but it felt like there was a bunch of Miami Heat fans that ended up getting in that arena. I don't know where that came
they
from.
were. That was weird. Yeah.
I don't know where that came from.
They were like reaching across to high five each other. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Where the hell did this come from? But you got that. I thought Denver's fan base was up to the task and up for the moment. Plus, you had the 2 comebacks. The comeback from Denver that got their crowd into it, and then Miami with the improbable comeback. So I thought everybody's sense of urgency, maybe that's something that just naturally happens in a game 2, but I thought everybody's sense of urgency was higher in that game 2, and they performed to that level. I thought it was a great game.
Yeah, it was fun for sure.
What did you guys think about Adam Silver's what were the other comments that he had? The John Morant stuff was like, that was pretty big. And then the latest stuff with him saying that he's more than fine with San Antonio allowing Victor Wembanyama to have his debut in Sacramento at the California Classic. Just so people know, I would probably go get your tickets now because that building's gonna sell out. I think they officially went on today.
Yeah, I think they went on sale today. I thought the story from ESPN and the remarks from Adam were kind of funny, simply because. I'll ask you, what the hell did you expect him to say? Like, no, we will absolutely not let Victor Wembanyama play in Sacramento. He is not going to debut in Sacramento, California. It'd be Adam Silver talking about Sacramento like Kenny did Scotty Barnes. Sacramento? No. Like Adam didn't say anything. Like, there was the article, and I get it. It's content. Write it. Click it. Like, there's nothing there. It doesn't say Victor Wembanyama is going to play in Sacramento. It says Adam Silver would be okay if he played in Sacramento. The real headline would have been Adam Silver says, hell no, Victor Wembanyama will not play at the California Classic. That's the headline. The other one is just, yeah, of course he doesn't care if he plays here. Why would he?
It's kind of funny.
Will just stop here on their way to Las Vegas. That's all that's going to happen.
Yeah, and do you think that you're not going to sell out all of the Vegas seats because he already played once?
Well, I'm not. Let's hold off on this trip to Vegas, guys. Victor Wembanyama may play on Monday.
He already played. Damn it,
he might play Monday, guys.
It's over. We don't want to go. I'm selling my tickets now. Yeah, I was able to land my son 5 seats behind the visitors bench because it's reasonable, nice. But it's for like 4 games on one day and 4 games on the next. So even for really good seats, I think really, really good seats are like $125, but that's for 8 games. Man, that's a lot of basketball. That's 2 full days of watching. So, yeah, he's going to be right behind the visitors bench just in case Victor Wembanyama is there. And then he'll stand up and he won't be able to see the action.
Victor Wembanyama ain't going to be able to see nothing.
Dude, you got to sit down. I need you to sit down, tall guy.
You know, we throw people out of this arena for standing too much. Vic, I'm gonna introduce you to Earl here real quick. Out of my face.
That's the one thing that I tell people, sit the hell down, shut the hell up. When they tried to get mad, remember a couple years ago they got mad at the NBA players because they would stand up and support, like in crunch time. And they need to sit down. We paid a lot of good money. We can't see. Shut up. They're playing in the game. Yeah. Their team is in the game.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Look at the big screen, dummy. Hey, I have a question. You said something a few minutes ago, Hammer, about there's 3 two-way contracts coming this year, right? And you also mentioned you think Neemias Queta is going to be on the main roster, which I agree with, and I kind of sneaky hope. Keon Ellis, you think he remains a two-way, or is his time with Sacramento over?
No, I don't think his time in Sacramento is over at all. I think they really like Keon. I think the problem that Keon has is that he needs to bulk up. He needs a couple of years to like really like fill out as just a, you know, as he gets older with age. And everything I heard from, you know, the people down in Stockton was that they really, really like him. They think he's a little bit behind at Neemias as far as like development. But I mean, he did everything you wanted him to do. He's really, really good on the break. He hits a three. He plays defense. You know, the problem is that like he gained 8 pounds and he still needs like another like 18 pounds in order to be like a full-time NBA, you know, defensive stopper off the bench type deal. And so I think he's going to get time to develop. I think the Kings will, like, I would be very surprised if he's not back, because I think they found something as an undrafted player last year. And, you know, again, they have his rights, and he can be in the G League he can be on a two-way for another 2 years. So, you know, you're allowed up to 3 years on a two-way contract now. So I would be surprised if one of the two ways didn't go to Keon Ellis. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm off. But, you know, he did everything that they wanted him to do last year, and he's getting better in the hopes that maybe he can play a little bit more point guard than he has, that he did in college, and that, you know, you're slowly bringing him along and helping him develop that skill. So when he does get the call up, that he'd get an opportunity to actually play both guard positions. But, you know, you're looking at a kid with decent size and great athleticism, and he does everything right, and he says the right things, and he's just really, really a nice kid. So I would be surprised if he wasn't back.
I like Keon. I'm intrigued by what he could possibly be. And this is kind of not that position is just locked up because of what you're trying to do, but this would be, you know, go along the lines of building a program, what we talked about last year, a guy like Keon Ellis, and say he's not ready after his rookie year. That's fine. You got another year or two in the G League, and we try to develop you and bring you around to the point where by your third season, you're ready to contribute. Like, for instance, a lot of these guys in Miami are able to do. You're able to contribute on that level. And we took our time, and we were patient with the development of Keon Ellis. So, yeah, if he was on another two-way contract and he spent much of the time in Stockton again, I don't think that'd be a problem at all. At all.
Yeah. And this is kind of what we've talked about in the past. Like, I really do believe that the NBA needs to head more and more towards like a legitimate minor league system. And Keon is the right guy to do that with. If you're the Kings, he is exactly the player he was in college. You're not asking him to do something different. You're asking him to be a 3-and-D wing and just get better and better and better at that same thing. And he's a good teammate. He's a good leader on the court. He's going to find his voice even more. And I think that he's a kid that you can, you know, if you're going to have what we were referring to as like a program, he's a kid you want in your program.
Hammer, more important stretch coming up for Sacramento, draft or free agency?
Man, they're sort of just like mixed up together now, because they're only like 8 days apart, right? So free agency starts now on the 30th. And the draft is the 22nd. I think, you know, because you're the 24th pick, I think the Kings will still really look at all options with that 24th pick. Look at the history of picks around that, 20 through 25 and what teams get for those players, for those picks as far as like players. I still think that the Kings could look to shop that pretty heavily and, draft a player for another team and then have the transaction go through after the June 30th. But I'm not sure. Like between the two, the Kings are going to be active in both, whether that means they're actually going to draft at 24 or not, or trade 38 or trade 54. I don't know, because they always seem to surprise you with that stuff. But I definitely think that all options are open. That's just the way it feels with this team. They know that they're still a couple of pieces away, and that's okay. And they know that they have a lot of roster turnover happening this year, whether they want it to be that way or not, just because they have a lot of free agents. So it's going to be a pretty interesting 2-week period right there.
Yeah, it's going to be a whirlwind. It feels like I was thinking about this on the way in. It was like, man, Kings made the playoffs, so it extended the season a lot longer than we're normally used to. But there's still this bunch of downtime. But it's all going to come back at you in like this tsunami with the draft, with Summer League, with free agency, taking you through July pretty much. But I trust that this front office, the other thing I was thinking about, I trust that this front office is ready to make a move. They won't be caught off guard by anything. And Monty McNair, Wes Wilcox, I think draft and free agency and possibly on the trade market. I think they got some things up their sleeve, man. I really do. I think we've talked about it before, but I think they're going to be really aggressive, and I think they're going to take a shot. They're going to take a chance at it. Nothing reckless, but I think they're going to take a chance at moving up into an upper echelon of NBA teams.
LeBron and Kyrie?
Well,
there it is. They're the new Dallas Mavericks.
I was trying to dance around it, but I mean,
yeah. LeBron, Kyrie, and Jeff Van Gundy. All here in Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think that the Kings are in a pretty decent position. I wrote today on just breaking down all of their financials and their picks and who's a free agent, who's not, how much those, a lot of, what they're expected and all that stuff. So they've got to be aggressive because their roster, what was it? Maintain and improve. That's what Monty McNair said. Maintain and improve. And that's not going to be simple. You've got a lot of work to do because if you don't have Harrison Barnes back, that's one thing. If you do have him back, you still need to figure out the improve part. And so, yeah, a lot to figure out if you're Monty McNair.
The maintain part seems relatively easy. The improve part's the tough one. How do you get better? How do you improve while still maintaining? Because you do have this situation with HB, and it's like that's kind of part of the maintenance. But as Kenny, you've outlined on a number of different occasions, it's also a big part of the potential improvement that's out there. So that's just difficult. What's not, it's actually quite easy, is to head over to thekingsbeat.com right now and become a premium subscriber over at the Kings Beat, because one, that unlocks a tremendous amount of content from our Kings insider, James Ham. And two, it'll get you a VIP invite to the Off the Record Happy Hour with Gary St. Jean tomorrow night. As Hammer mentioned, these are normally on Thursdays, but for this go around, it's on a Tuesday. It is tomorrow, so this is our last visit with James. We'll try to remind you tomorrow, but go do it right now. Most of you are in front of your computer anyway. Kingsbeat.com. Become a premium subscriber. Unlock a ton of great content from James, and you'll get the invitation for the Off the Record Happy Hour with Gary St. Jean tomorrow, hosted by James, who is just absolutely tremendous in that forum.